pay the creditors and shareholders, which are entirely based on the priority of these clients. So the term liquidation may also be used to refer to the selling of the poor performing goods at a lower price than that of cost to the business. So here the liquidity strategy is the most unpleasant strategy which is going to be adopted by the organization that includes selling off its assets and the final closures or winding up of the business operation. So liquidation strategy is going to involve selling the companies in its entirely or in its parts for the value of its assets. Many small business owners which are existing their business through the liquidation. For example, if a retailer that suffers a loss on his business may find no one interested in buying the company's going concern. To extract as much as value out of the business as possible, the owner has a liquidation sales and sells all the inventories, fixtures, and equipment before permanently closing the store's doors. So company may pursue a disinvestment strategies to refocus on their core business in response to their operating environment in the industries or to release the underperforming assets. Companies typically pursue liquidation strategies when their core business lines or subsidiaries has failed and no longer serves the owner purpose. So for these liquidation strategies are most crucial and it is a last resort to re-enrich, and since it involves serious consciousness such as a sense of failure, loss of future opportunities, spoiled market images, loss of employment for employees, etc. So what are the main indicators that is necessary for the following to follow this type of a strategy? First, failure of the corporate strategies, continuous losses, excellent technology, outdated products, business becoming unprofitability, poor management, lack of integration. So generally, the small-sized business proprietary firms and the partnership firms, usually they follow this type of liquidation strategy more often. Next one is a combined strategy. The combination strategy means making the use of other grand strategy, that is stability, expansion, or retrenchment. Similarly, simply the combination of any kind of grand strategies used by organization in different business at the same time or in the same business at different times with an aim to improve its efficiency is called as combination strategy. A combination strategy is also known as mixed or hybrid strategy. Combination strategy is also known as mixed or hybrid strategies. So what are the reasons for the following of this combination strategy? What are the main reasons for following this type of a combination strategy? Means the first and foremost reason when the organization is large and faces a fast changing complex environment. When the organization is large and faces fast complex environment, the company's products are in different stages of the life cycle. The company's products are at different stages of the life cycle. Next, a combination strategy is suitable for a multiple industry firm at the time of the recession. The combination strategy is the best for firms, divisions which perform unevenly or do not have same future potentiality. So the possible combination of the strategies may be, what are the possible combination of the strategies that may be means? See here, stability in some business and growth in other business. Stability in some business and retrenchments in other businesses. Growth in some business and re-enrichment in other business, and stability, growth, and retrenchments in different business. So these are the possible combinations where we can adopt the combination strategy. For example, a paints company adopts combination strategies when it is augmenting in offering or decorating paints to provide a greater variety to its customers. There is stability. And increase its product range to add industrial and automotive paints. That may be expansion, and closes down the paint, contracting the division, that is reinvestment. So in this way, a paint company is going to have a possible combination of this strategy. What are the different types of combination strategy? That is simultaneous combination strategy, sequential combination strategy, combination of simultaneous and sequential strategies. These are the different types of the strategies of combined strategies. So this is all about your combined strategy. Next, we are moving on to the strategic implementation and evaluation and control. So when we are discussing about the strategic management, once a task of the strategies is chosen and formulated, it has to be put into action. This process is known as implementation of strategies. Strategies by themselves do not lead to the action. Just give me 5 minutes, ma. I'll be back 5 minutes, please. So once the task of a strategy has been chosen and formulated, it has to be put into an action. This is the main aim of any concept of the strategy. So the process is known as implementation of the strategy. We can call it as. So strategies by themselves do not lead to an action. So there is an instance and a statement of intent, implementation tasks that are meant to realize the intent. Strategies therefore have to be active and through the implementation. So the process of implementation is called as a corporate development. Strategic implementation or corporate development covers a wide range of issues involving a number of decisions and actions which are critically for the success of a strategy. Therefore, the resources of the organization need to be allocated and reallocated in a manner that reinforces the choice of the strategies. The concept of this strategic implementation is a process of creating an organization arrangements that allow it to pursue its strategy most effectively. While creating these arrangements, management must keep in view about the objectives and strategies and the capabilities of the enterprises for carrying into an effect the strategic plans. So these crucial steps in the management is known as a organization designs, which plays a crucial role in the strategic implementation. So here, in simple way, we can call the strategic implementations defined as a process through which a chosen strategy is put into an action. Whatever the strategies which you have been put in, we have been keeping into an action that is called as your strategic implementation. Strategic implementation is the process of creating an organizational arrangement that is going to allow to pursue its strategies most effectively. So while creating this type of arrangements, management is going to keep in view about the objectives, strategies, and the capability where the enterprises is going to carry over for the futures, which is going to affect the strategic plans. So this crucial steps in management is known as your organizational design, which plays a crucial role in strategic implementation. So in simple way, we can say that strategic implementation can be defined as a process through which a chosen strategy is going to put in action. Whatever the chosen, we have chosen the strategy, simply we are keeping into an action. So those definitions is very simple, but it's not specifically what actions are required in the strategic implementation. Simply we can say that these are the course of action we are going to implement it. These are the strategic things we have to implement it, but to apply in a practical way, it is quite difficult. So that's why to elaborate the issues and the activities which involve in strategic formulations, we are going to be learning about with the help of strategic formulation. So here, the implementation of policies and strategies is concerned with the design and management of systems to achieve the best integration of people, structure, process, and resources in the teaching organization process. This is according to the tenor we had behind the strategic formulation. What is the nature and significance of this strategic formulation means the basic things where to be considered is the interrelationship between the formulation and implementation of the strategies. So when we discuss about the nature and scope of this implementations means first, whatever the things we have formulated, we are going to implement that things into a plan course of action. That is the basic things we have to know about when we are considering the strategic formulation. So it is to be noted that the division of strategic management into different phases is only for the purpose of orderly study. So in real life, the formulation and implementation process are intertwined. So two types of linkage is going to exist between these two phases of strategic management. The forward linkage deals with the impact of formulation and implementation, while the backward linkage is concerned with the impact in its opposite directions. So putting all these strategies into one place and getting the organization to exit, it will always call for a different set of managerial tasks and skills. So it always calls for determining the clear what exactly the organization has to change as a possible things. So what are the dimensions which are be there in the strategic implementation means first, managing the organization structure, managing the changes in creating a suitable organizational culture, allocation of proper resources. So these are the dimensions which will be there in your strategic formulation. Organization structure. Always organization structure is a way in which task and subtask is required to implement a strategies which are being arranged. So it has to interact continuously with this environment, and due to this interaction, some sort of changes are brought continuously in the organization. If the changes is a minor one, and whatever the comes which they review is established program of action, the changes will be absorbed within the system. But if the changes is major, it has to throw the organization out of the equilibrium seriously, which is going to affect the function of the organization. Therefore, there is a close relationship between the organization strategy and structures. It always has to interplay the organization strategy and the structure. So whatever the things, relationship which have been built in the organization, it is always important and implementing the strategy. The organization structure is designed according to the needs of the strategy. Always the relationship between the strategy and structures can be throughout in terms of utilizing structure and strategies. So if with the present organized structure is not going to be given adequate things, it should be filled up with the chosen strategies in order to light up the strategy structures, which is always fit and strategic principles of the organization, where the top level management is going to look it forward for things, for achieving the things. So what are the factors which will be affecting for these framing of organization structure means rapid growth leading to the problems which is not manageable by the organization, excessive diversification of product lines, increasing the competition and environmental changes, change in managerial styles, change in organization climate, unsatisfactory work performance. So these are the main factors which will be affecting for this organization structures. The next dimension is your management of change. Change refers to the ability of the management to integrate new ideas into new established system so that change for the better can be continuously in effect. there are many ways of doing things, such as ways which have been adopted that encourage employees to share ideas and participate as change agents. All the members learn to find the best ideas and put these ideas to work. The organization changes may come from it always come from the adopted that encourage employees things. So it always gives find the best ideas and put these ideas into work. It always come up from the top level management who convinced about its necessities and direct and structural, strategical, technological changes that will be very much beneficial to the organizations and its members. If these changes are to be implemented successfully, they need full acceptance from the employees. The easiest way to get this accepted is the participation of employees in the change effort. Participation should be a part of and the result of total treatment of the employment. So once they understand the need of change, they would be less likely to resist. According to it, important for the managers and they become enthusiastic things. Third dimension is creating suitable organizational culture. A well-managed organizations are apparently experience distinctive culture. They are in some way responsible for their ability to successfully implementing the changes. It has been clearly demonstrated that every corporation has a culture which are oftenly include several culture and subculture experts powerful influencing on the behavior of manager. So here culture affects not only the way managers behave with the organization, but also the decisions they make about the organization relationship with its environment and its strategy. So culture is a strength that can be sometimes weakened. It will also give some kind of weakness. A strength culture can facilitate communication, decision making, and control, and creates a cooperation and communicate. As weakness culture obstruct the smooth implementation of strategy by creating the resistance to the change. An organization cultures cannot be as strong sometimes because of coincidence and whatever the context. Conducts and business strategy. According to a clear and explicit set of principles and values, which are the management devotes considerable time to communicate to employees which values and share widely across the organization. So whenever the organization thinks that whatever it is not going to have any kind of a strong and it will be giving a weakness things, so definitely it is going to contribute some of the factors which is going to be strengthening and building the clients. So what are the three factors means? A founder or an influential leaders who establish desirable values, a sincere and dedicated commitment to operate the business of the organization according to these desirable values, a genuine concern for well-being of the organization stakeholders. So managerial behavior arising out of corporate culture either can facilitate abstract, smooth implementation or the basic question before the strategies is that how whatever the creating strategies support culture. In other words, the major leaderships within the organization is going to create an appropriate strategic culture fix. The next dimension is your allocation of resources. One of the basic activities in strategic implementation is the allocation of resources. It refers to both financial and non-financial resources that are available to the organization. Allocation of resources. Once a basic activity in strategic implementation is allocation of resources. It refers both financial and non-financial resources. That is, when the available to the organizations and lacking but required strategy. Available to the organization but lacking to the required strategies. In these two cases, perhaps that information is going to done. Of course, the first thing that comes to the minds when the amount of funding will support to the implementation, because the available resources will be available to the organizations. But whenever we have been arising for the second one, Second one, covering the clauses, covering the costs and expenses that must be incurred in the execution of the strategies. So another important resource is the time, which is enough time to see the strategies towards its implementation. So how they are when implementing means planning allocation of resource at the corporate level, resource planning at business unit level. These are the two ways where they are going to generally face, generally requiring the lacking of these resource allocation. So generally resource allocation is managed by formula driven or free bargaining method, or sometimes both in both the way they will be analyzing. So whenever in formula driven approach, allocation of resources is made as per the corporate directive, whereas allocation is decentralized under bargaining method. So always the formula methods may be employed as a starting point, which is establishing an allocation, which may subsequently be modified after bargaining the corporate and functional manager. So whenever this approach has been suffering any kind of a problems of attributions that is leading to disagreements about the validity of the formula, in such cases of bargaining method, it is more useful if some degree of distorations is given to functional manager. So most probably in that cases, organization is moving towards for the growth plan, which requires significant changes in resource allocation. There are three approaches which are centralized, open competition, and constrained bidding. Under centralized approach, priorities areas are defined at corporate levels and resource allocations are done according to. In open competition approach, allocation of resources as among the different activity units is done through the process of open competitions. So these are the things which will be applying for planning of the allocation of resources at the corporate levels, which will be helping with the help of centralization, open competitions, and constrained bidding. Next one is with the help of resource planning at business unit level. At corporate levels, with the help of three approaches, and at business unit level. There are three crucial issues which is emphasizing under these three business unit level. First, resource identification, fit with the existing resources, and fit between the resources. Risk identification involves determining what resources a strategy will require and how these resources should be configured. And enterprises adopting lower price strategies has to emphasize on the cost effective plan, simply operating process, and low cost distribution system. It always plans should be supported and management systems which will ensure that the cost effectively be actually delivered. On the other hand, differentiation strategies should be focused on different sorts of skills and resources in making a market research and creative on the product development, which will be very much helpful in controlling and reporting the systems for the organization creating their goals. Last one, planning the implementation is to decide the organization where it has to change or reconfigure at current resources. So at this time, the company may go for manufacturing and marketing a new product range through a new division or avoids problems, conflicts which is existing between the operation. So these are the important things where they are going to allocating the resources. What are the steps in strategic implementations? What are the steps we have to follow for implementation of the strategic implementations? First steps, there are certain steps which is going to be helpful for the organizations for strategic implementation approaches will be there. First step, evaluation and communication of strategic plans, development of an implementation structure, development of implementation support policies and programs, budgeting and allocation of resources, discharge of functionals and activities. These are the steps which will be there in strategic implementation. The first step, evaluation and communication of strategic plans. If you look at the first itself is giving a description, the name itself is giving a description that first of all, we have to evaluate and communicate of the strategic plans. What are the strategic plans we want to implement for our organization's benefit stakes? First, we need to evaluate all these things and communicate what are the strategic plans we have to do. So, which was developed during the strategic formulation stages. So, whatever the things which are there, we are doing according to the formulation stage itself only, which will distribute for implementations. So, there is still a need to evaluate this plan, especially with respect to the initiations. So, how we are going to building all those things, formulations with the help of the certain sub-steps, where First, we are going to align the strategies with the initiations. Means what is the first initiation we want to take? So first of all, we are going to aligning the things. Then we are going to check the strategies on what the plan are going to be followed. Next, we are going to giving a path for leading the mission and framing the strategic goals for the organization. When afterwards, when we have been planned of all these mission, strategic goals and framing a path, then we are going to align the budget to the annual goals and objectives, which is going to fit for the annual goals and objectives. So here, financial assessments has to be conducted prior, which will always provide insight on budgetary issues. One has to evaluate how these budgetary issues is going to even impact for attainment of these objectives. Then afterwards, framing the budget, we have to communicate and clarify the goals, objectives, all the strategies to all the members of the organization. We have to give a clear communications to all the members in the organization. So in this way, we are going to first evaluation and communication of strategic plans will be done. Next, development of an implementation structure. Next step, we are going to develop what is the structures we have to implement. So it is always create a vision or structure that serve as a guide or conceptual framework for the organization, which is going to implementation strategy. How first is always establish a linkage or coordination mechanism between or among the various departments with their respective divisions and units. All the different divisions, all the units, apart from their things, they always have a coordination linkage between the things, which is always facilitate the delegation of authority and responsibility. Next, it is always formulate the work plans and procedures to be followed in the implementation process. All the working plans, that always it has to be followed and it has to be give a guidelines to all the business units of the organization. Determine the key managerial tasks and responsibilities which have to be performed by each and every business unit. Next, determine the key operational tasks and responsibilities also. Next, after all designing these managerial tasks and operational tasks, they have to assign the tasks to the appropriate divisions. Afterwards, they have to evaluate the current staffing structure, checking both whether the organization has enough manpower and they have the necessary competency to carry out this task or not. With these, they are come to conclusion that whether they are going for some reorganization or reshuffling the people. After that, they will going to know the communicating the details to the members of the organization, which will be there to frame a model or manuals or sometimes guidebook. In this way, they will be implementing the structure of the implementation strategies. After that, they are going to developing the implementation supporting principles and policies. How means with the help of establishing a performance tracking and monitoring system. Next, establishing a performance management system, establish an information and feedback systems. With these things, they are going to developing the implementation supporting policies and strategies. Then next step, budgeting and allocation of resources. It is now time to equip the implementators to tie up with the tools and other capabilities which they are going to perform. First, they need to allocate the resources to various departments, which is depend upon the results of financial assessment. Then afterward, it has to disperse the necessary resources to the departments and make sure everything is properly and accurately documented. Then afterwards, it has to maintain a system of checks and balances to monitor whether the departments are operating within their budgetary limits or not. Then afterwards, last step is that they have to discharge of functions and activities. A continuous engagement of personals by providing training and reorientation should be done. Enforce the applicable control measures in the performance of the task, which is evaluate the performance at different levels and identify the performance gaps. Through these things, basically, it will give a result which will give an input to the next stage or next generation, which always be helping for making the strategic management into a strategic evaluations. So these are the basic steps which will be required for the strategic formulations and which will be considering as a one of the foremost important than that of a strategic themselves, which is always helping in taking a sides or weighing, making the comparison, especially for considering how these two important stages and strategic management is considered very important. Next, what are the different approaches of strategic implementation? So here we are having the 5 approaches, that is commander approach, organization change approach, collaborative approach, cultural approach, and last one, cohesion approach. How organization analysis will having an approach in the same things. Strategic implementation is also going to have an approach. Commander approach, the top-down approaches where the manager is going to take the opportunity to concentrate on suitable strategic formulation and is going to pass along with the subordinates. He will place an important roles in executing all the commanding operation structures because he will be considering as a topmost person, and it works best when the strategies to be implemented requires relatively little change. So however, whatever the things which will be there, some of the limitations will be there for this approach. That is, whatever the implementation strategies are been involved, they have been not yet been done according to the development. Hence, the employees are not much inspired and they feel that they are not having a important role in taking a decision making. This type of a classage is going to be occur under this commander approach. Next, organization change approach. When these approaches are being differ subsequently in the approach of implementation. In this approach, most probably the manager functions as an architect and design administrative system for effective implementations of the strategies. So therefore, the trust is how to get the organization members to implement these strategies. So here, whenever these strategies has been implemented, it is also have following some kind of a limitations, that is lack of attentions and the social and behavioral acceptance in the implementation. Absence of motivational contents is also one of the main drawback for this approach because the trust is upon on the middle level management, whereas commanding tells top level management. Here, this approach is a middle level management. Hence, it may not be suitable in uncertain situation or fast changing condition. So that's why the same motivational factor problem is also there, like the commanding mode approach is there, and dedication of the top down management. So most probably it is also not suitable in uncertainty or rapidly changing conditions of the organization. Next, collaborative approach. This approach is a collectively enduring considering the view of all executive in the organizations. So the main goal and strategies are negotiated among the top team and overcome the key limitations of commander and change approach. So this is going to give a overcoming the limitations of both the approaches, that is commander and organizational team. And it provides a formula to share and evaluate information and views by various managers. So many companies is going to follow this approach because it is found to be useful and successful. So that's why they are going to approach, because it will be giving a limitative, overcoming the limitations of the commander approach as well as the change approach. Next, cultural approach. Under this approach, the top management provides directions to the organization by architecting the vision and communicating to its employees. So always when the working activities in the pursuits of the missions has not been empowered and encouraged. Once the strategy is formulated, the executives are guided to achieve the mission and vision. A strong organization culture is going to build the influence of the behavior, which is going to shape up the norms, values, and beliefs where the executives and employees are been doing on the day basis. So the best advantage of this approach is that partially break down the barriers between the thinkers and the doers, because each members of the organization can be involved. Here, all the people who are working in the organization, they are going to employ. So that's why this is considered one of the best advantage for this approach, where all the members of the organization can be involved in degree, so that they should be expecting to be dedicated to the implementation of these strategies. So some of the limitation is also going to follow for this approach, that the people at lower level may not have some kind of a perspective visions. Lower level people, all the employees will be including, but lower level people do not have such kind of a perspective visions, knowledge and expertise to develop the strategies. So it is always a time consuming and difficult to adopt. Next, consequences approach. This is a bottom level approach. Instead of the top management taking on itself the entire task of developing the strategy, the subordinates are empowered to develop and implement the strategies. Goals are stated loosely from top and redefined at the bottom level executives. Executives are encouraged to subordinates and to design, develop, and execute the strategies of their own, all the bottom-up top-level management. So the top management acts as evaluator to screen up the proposal instead of mastering the strategies. So it is entirely employed in large and diversified organizations proposals, which is difficult for the chief executive to know and understand all the strategic operation process of each division. However, this approach will be successful only for the advocate funds are available and good ideas are emerged and proved by the executives. It is time consuming and expensive also. Another drawback, it is a failure to specify how managers should go about implementing the strategies. So the cross-functional team members should be very active and quick to achieve the targets set and to be extend for restructuring their divisions. So always it will be a bringing the product successful into the market. So these are the different approaches for the strategic formulations and roles. I will be explaining in the next class, because we have very less time to discuss. Roles, the evaluation of strategies, we'll be discussing in the next class. And industrializations and strategies also we'll discuss in the next class.